Let's begin softly, slowly, as if we are sitting beside a warm fire together on a quiet winter night. Take a slow breath in and let it go. Feel your shoulders relax, your hands grow still, and the air around you settles into calm. The world outside can wait a little while. Right now, it is only you, the hush of snow, and a story. Our story tonight begins in a valley blanketed in winter. The moon hangs low, spilling pale light over rooftops that wear soft caps of snow. The air is cold but gentle, and if you listen closely, you can almost hear the tiny sounds of flakes landing on thatched roofs, on tree branches, and on the wooden bridge that crosses the frozen stream. The only movement is the faint curl of chimney smoke drifting up to the sky. Far along the path, a lone figure makes his way toward the village. His cloak is heavy with frost, his boots crunch lightly in the snow, and on his back rests a lute, its polished wood glimmering in the moonlight. He is a bard, a traveler of songs and stories. His name is not known to many. He never stays long enough for people to remember it. They simply call him the Snow Bard, for he always seems to appear with the first snowfall. He reaches the edge of the village, where a small tavern glows with amber light. The scent of burning pine wood drifts out from the doorway each time it opens. Inside, people murmur softly over mugs of steaming cider. The bard steps through the door, stamping the snow from his boots, and the warmth of the room greets him like an old friend. A few villagers turn to look, but they are kind and quiet people, used to travelers seeking shelter on winter nights. The innkeeper nods toward the fire and gestures for him to sit. The bard smiles, his cheeks red from the cold, and lowers himself onto the wooden bench by the hearth. The fire crackles, and for a long moment he just sits there, hands stretched toward the warmth, eyes half closed in peace. Outside, the wind sighs along the walls of the tavern, carrying the distant hush of snow falling over the fields. Inside, the only sound is the soft pop of the firewood and the rhythmic creak of the bard's lute case as he opens it. He runs his fingers over the strings, tuning them slowly, the notes faint but clear, like drops of water falling into stillness. When the lute is ready, he looks up and smiles. The villagers lean in a little, drawn not by any grand announcement, but by the gentle quiet of his manner. His voice is low and calm as he begins to speak. In the days when roads were long and lonely, he says, there were minstrels who carried songs the way others carried bread or salt. They walked from village to village, through forests and across frozen hills, bringing news and tales to those who might otherwise never hear them. They sang of kings and of bakers, of lost children and found friends, of the seasons and the stars. Their music was the thread that stitched the world together. He strums a slow, soothing chord. The sound hums in the wooden beams above, mingling with the sigh of the fire. Each winter, he continues, when the world grew quiet and people gathered close to their hearths, these travelers found rest among them. And sometimes, when the snow was thick enough to hush even the fox's steps, they sang songs not of heroes or battles, but of stillness, of how snow softens every sound, how it asks the world to pause and breathe. He plucks a melody that feels almost like a whisper. The notes are simple, drifting upward, fading, returning. A little girl sitting near the fire lays her head on her mother's lap, eyes growing heavy. The blacksmith, who had been rubbing his hands to keep them warm, stops and listens. Even the innkeeper leans quietly against the counter, watching the bard's fingers dance over the strings. Outside, the snow continues to fall. The flakes land on the windowsill and melt into tiny beads of water that catch the firelight. The bard's voice softens even more. There is a saying from long ago. He tells them that every snowflake holds a story. Some are old, carried from winter to winter. Some are new, written in the clouds just before they fall. When you sit in silence and let the snow drift past your window, if you listen carefully, you can almost hear those stories. They sound like the faintest lullaby. He plays a few notes that rise and fade, like a breeze moving through pine needles. One of the villagers sighs, and another smiles faintly. The bard closes his eyes for a moment and lets the silence stretch between them, comfortable and deep. When he opens them again, his gaze drifts toward the window, where the night beyond glows silver with snow. I have walked through many winters, he murmurs, but this one feels like the gentlest of them all. He sets his lute aside, just for a moment, and reaches for a cup of cider that the innkeeper has quietly placed beside him. The steam curls into the air, carrying the scent of apples and spice. He takes a slow sip, then looks around the room once more. The fire crackles softly, the snow keeps falling, and the bard begins to hum again, no words. Now, just a tune as calm as the breath between dreams. His music becomes part of the room's rhythm, the crackle, the sigh, the slow ticking of an old clock in the corner. Someone shifts in their seat, another stirs the embers, and the melody continues, weaving through each small sound like a thread of warmth. After a while, the bard leans forward, his voice no louder than the falling snow. "May your dreams tonight be kind," he says. "May they come softly, like the first flakes of winter." He sets his lute aside, closes his eyes, and lets the stillness rest around him. The villagers say later that the bard stayed there until dawn. When they woke, the fire had burned down to embers, and he was gone, leaving behind only a faint trail of footprints in the snow and the memory of his gentle song. Outside, the world gleamed fresh and white, and if you listened very carefully, you could almost hear the music still drifting through the quiet morning air. If these quiet tales are helping you drift off, a gentle like or a silent subscribe would mean the world. It helps this sleepy corner of the internet reach others who need a little calm too. I always wonder, where in the world are you listening from right now? If you're still awake, leave a whisper of a comment, maybe your city and the time on your clock. It's a beautiful thing, this quiet little global gathering, all connected through stories and stillness. Now, let's set the mood, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and get comfortable. All right, take another breath, soft and slow. Let the air fill your chest, and then drift away again. The fire has dimmed, but its warmth still lingers in the room, in the wooden walls, in the quiet sigh of the chimney. The night outside has deepened into the color of ink. Somewhere, an owl calls once, then falls silent. Now, our story continues. When the morning came, the village awoke to silence. The kind of silence that feels alive, full of breath, full of snow. The innkeeper was the first to rise. She stepped into the main room, rubbing her hands for warmth, expecting to find the bard still there by the hearth, but the bench was empty. The only sign that anyone had sat there was a small patch of melted snow on the floorboards, already drying in the pale morning light. On the table by the fire lay a single silver coin and a small scrap of parchment. The parchment bore a few words in careful handwriting. "Thank you for the warmth. May your nights be gentle." The innkeeper smiled. She picked up the parchment, read it once more, and then placed it near the mantel where all could see it. She knew travelers like him never stayed long, yet somehow his presence lingered, like the faint hum of a tune that won't quite fade away. Outside, the village was covered in a smooth, untouched layer of snow. The roofs shone like soft white clouds, and the air sparkled with tiny crystals. People stepped out slowly, speaking in low voices, as though afraid to disturb the stillness. And more than one person, standing at their door, thought they heard a distant sound, the faintest music, just at the edge of hearing. Far down the frozen road, the bard walked again. His cloak fluttered lightly behind him, and the sun had not yet climbed above the hills. The world was soft gray and gold. His breath rose in thin, curling clouds, and each step left a neat print behind, soon half covered by drifting snow. He walked with no rush, no plan, letting the morning unfold at its own gentle pace. Sometimes he hummed to himself a melody that matched the rhythm of his steps. Sometimes he was silent, listening to the soft creak of tree branches laden with frost, or the distant cry of a raven cutting across the sky. In a small grove by the road stood a tree older than any in the valley. Its bark was cracked and silvered, its branches bare but strong. The bard paused beneath it, brushing the snow from a low branch before sitting down. He placed his lute beside him and closed his eyes. He could still feel the warmth of the tavern in his memory, the laughter, the sleepy smiles, the way the fire had whispered along the logs. He thought of the child who had fallen asleep to his music, of the way the villagers' shoulders had slowly relaxed as he played. There was something precious in that quiet connection. He had carried songs across many lands, but it was never the grand halls or the crowded markets that stayed in his heart. It was moments like these, the gentle ones, the ones where silence and sound met halfway. The wind stirred softly, carrying a few flakes through the air. They caught in his hair, melted against his cheek. He reached for his lute again, plucked a single string, and listened to the note fade. He remembered something his teacher had once told him, long ago, when he was still learning how to play. "Music," she had said, "is not the sound you make. It's the quiet that comes after." He smiled at that. The bard began to play once more, not for an audience, not for a coin, but simply because the morning was beautiful, and it asked to be filled with something soft. The tune rose gently, mingled with the cold air, and drifted upward into the branches. For a moment, the forest seemed to listen. Even the wind grew still. He played until the light changed, until the first hints of day began to stretch across the snow. Then he stood, brushed the frost from his cloak, and continued down the road. The sound of his lute faded, replaced by the hush of the open fields. By midday, the sun had climbed higher, spilling pale gold over the landscape. The bard reached another village, smaller, quieter. Only a handful of cottages gathered near a frozen stream. Smoke rose from one chimney, and the faint smell of baking bread drifted through the cold. He didn't go inside right away. Instead, he stood on the bridge and looked down at the ice below. Beneath the surface, tiny bubbles shimmered like trapped stars. He rested his hands on the wooden railing and whispered a small tune into the air, letting it fall and settle like snow. A little boy appeared from one of the cottages, bundled in furs too large for him. He stared at the bard curiously, then shuffled closer. "Are you the one who sings?" he asked. The bard smiled. Sometimes, he said. The boy pointed to the lute. Can you make it sound like the wind? The bard thought for a moment, then strummed a chord, soft and low. The sound rolled through the quiet, rising and falling like a sigh through trees. The boy's eyes widened. He giggled, his breath fogging the air. It really does, he said. The bard played a few more notes, each one slow, each one gentle. The boy listened, then closed his eyes, swaying slightly, as if feeling the rhythm in his bones. When the tune ended, the bard asked softly, "Do you know any songs from your village?" The boy shook his head. "Mama sings to me when I can't sleep," he said. "It's about a bird that forgets where it was flying to." "That sounds like a good song," said the bard. "Maybe you can hum it for me." The boy hesitated, then hummed a few shy notes. They were simple and sweet, rising and falling like the flutter of wings. The bard listened carefully, then began to play along, finding the melody and shaping it on his strings. Soon the tune grew fuller, warmer, like the sound of light snowfall landing on the roof of a cottage. The boy laughed again. "That's it," he whispered. "That's the song." And so, by the frozen stream, the two of them played together, one with a lute, one with a voice, small but sure. The notes floated up into the clear winter air, carried gently over the rooftops. When the song ended, the boy smiled a sleepy smile. "You sound like the stories Mama tells," he said, "about travelers who bring dreams." The bard chuckled softly. "Maybe I do," he replied. "But dreams don't belong to travelers. They belong to those who listen." The boy nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Then he turned and ran back toward his cottage, calling over his shoulder, "Goodbye, dream traveler." The bard watched him go, his heart lighter than it had been in days. He lifted his lute once more and began to walk toward the horizon, his footsteps quiet in the snow. The sun shimmered low, and the world seemed wrapped in a soft, endless peace. Take another easy breath now, in and out. Imagine the sound of snow underfoot, that soft, slow crunch that comes when the world is wrapped in white. The day is dimming again in our story, and the air has turned the color of pale silver. Let's follow the bard a little farther down his quiet road. As afternoon faded into dusk, the sky blushed faintly, clouds turning rose and lavender. The bard walked until he saw the first dark shapes of the forest rising ahead, tall pines, their branches dusted in snow. A narrow trail wound between them, marked by an old wooden sign leaning slightly to one side. The letters carved into it were weathered but still legible, Hearth Hollow. He smiled when he saw the name. He remembered it from years ago, from a winter much like this one. Somewhere beyond those trees stood a small inn built of timber and stone, where travelers could find food, warmth, and sometimes a bit of company. The bard stepped beneath the first arching branches, and the hush of the forest closed around him. Snow clung to the air like breath, and every sound seemed softer here. The faint whisper of the wind through needles, the occasional creak of a tree adjusting its weight. He liked this part of the world. It felt as though time slowed within these woods, as though the trees themselves were listening. The path curved gently, and soon a flicker of orange light appeared ahead, the glow of a lantern swaying on a wooden post. Beyond it stood a cottage-like inn with smoke curling from its chimney. Warmth spilled from the windows, soft and golden. The bard approached quietly, brushing snow from his shoulders before opening the door. Inside, the room smelled of pine wood and stew. A few travelers sat near the fire, their voices low, Behind the counter stood an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair wrapped in a woolen scarf. When she saw him, she blinked, then smiled slowly, as if recognizing an old tune. "Well now," she said in a soft, steady voice, "if it isn't the snow bard himself." The bard's smile deepened. "You remember me," he said. "It's hard to forget a face that carries songs instead of luggage," she replied. "You came through here, 5 winters past, played that song about the falling stars." "I remember," he said. "The night was colder then." The woman chuckled and motioned toward the hearth. "Sit before you freeze again. I've a stew on the fire and bread just out of the oven." The bard thanked her and settled near the flames. The fire popped gently, filling the room with its soft rhythm. He removed his gloves, holding his hands toward the warmth, and let his eyes wander over the quiet space. The inn had changed little. The same rough-hewn tables, the same patched curtains, the same faint scent of herbs hung in the air. When the woman returned with a bowl of stew and a thick slice of bread, he nodded his gratitude. She lingered near the fire for a moment, rubbing her hands on her apron. "You're still walking the long roads," she said. "As long as they'll have me," he replied. "Do you ever get tired?" He thought for a moment. Spoon paused above the bowl. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but when I stop, the silence feels heavier. I think I'm meant to keep moving, even if it's only from one story to the next." The woman smiled faintly. "You always spoke that way," she said, "like someone half in a dream." He shrugged gently, taking a bite of the warm bread. "Maybe that's what songs are, bits of dreams that never quite wake up." She laughed softly at that, then patted his shoulder before moving away to tend to other guests. The bard ate slowly, savoring the comfort of the meal. The fire's glow deepened, shadows stretching and shifting along the walls. The wind outside rustled the eaves, but inside everything was still. When the bowl was empty, he set it aside and reached for his lute. The familiar weight of it settled into his lap like an old friend. He ran his thumb along the strings, letting one note, then another, float through the air. The old woman turned from behind the counter, smiling, "Still playing?" "Always," he said. "Then give us something gentle. It's been a long winter already." He nodded. For a moment, he just breathed, eyes half closed, feeling the rhythm of the fire, the creak of the walls, the sigh of the wind. Then he began to play. The first notes were soft and slow, rising like the swirl of smoke, then falling back into quiet. The tune carried warmth, not cheer exactly, but peace. It spoke of home, not as a place, but as a feeling. As he played, the travelers looked up from their cups. One man closed his eyes, another leaned his chin on his hands. Even the old woman stopped wiping the counter, her gaze far away. The bard sang, his voice low and smooth. The words told of a road that wound through snow and moonlight, and of hearts that always found their way back to warmth. Each line lingered a little before fading, like footprints slowly covered by falling flakes. When the song ended, the room stayed silent for a few breaths. Then someone sighed contentedly, and another whispered, "Beautiful." The bard smiled and lowered his lute. The old woman spoke first. "That one's new," she said. "It came to me on the road," he replied. "Sometimes the snow carries a melody, if you listen long enough." She nodded, as if that made perfect sense. "You always had a way of hearing what others missed." He looked toward the window, where frost traced delicate patterns across the glass. "Maybe," he said quietly, "but I think it's just the world trying to sing back." The woman chuckled softly, then went to fetch him a cup of warm tea. "Drink this before you vanish again," she said. The bard took the cup, wrapping his fingers around it, feeling its gentle heat. The scent of herbs rose to meet him, calming and sweet. He sat that way for a long time, listening, resting, watching the fire flicker. Outside, the snow fell steadily, each flake glinting in the lamplight before joining the white blanket below. When the night deepened and the other guests drifted off to their rooms, the bard stayed by the hearth, his thoughts quiet. The old woman sat across from him, knitting something small and gray. The only sounds were the soft clack of her needles and the faint hum of the wind beyond the door. "Do you ever miss the road?" he asked her after a while. She smiled without looking up. "Sometimes, but I think the road and I made peace long ago. Now I listen to other people's stories instead of living them." He nodded slowly. "Then you keep the stories safe," he said. "That's just as important." Her eyes warmed. "Maybe so," she said. "And maybe that you come back every few years to remind me what it feels like to hear one sung." The bard laughed softly. "Perhaps." The fire popped once more, sending up a tiny spray of sparks. The old woman rose, folded her knitting, and placed a blanket beside him. "Rest, traveler," she said. "Even dreamers need to sleep." He thanked her. She went upstairs, her steps fading. The bard leaned back, pulling the blanket over his shoulders. The warmth of the fire, the faint scent of pine, and the rhythmic creak of the building lulled him slowly toward rest. His thoughts drifted, loose and light, like snowflakes tumbling through still air. Somewhere far away, his own song echoed back to him, a memory, a whisper. The night was quiet, peaceful, and as his eyes closed, the snow kept falling, wrapping Hearth Hollow in a calm that felt endless. The first light of morning comes gently, as if it doesn't wish to wake anyone too quickly. It seeps through the frosted windows, turns the edges of the tables gold, and glances over the strings of the bard's lute where it rests beside him. He opens his eyes slowly, blinking away dreams. The fire has burned low, but its warmth still lingers in the air. For a moment, he doesn't move. He listens. Somewhere above, a floorboard creaks, a kettle whistles faintly. Beyond the walls, the forest hums softly, full of waking life, a bird stretching its wings, a light wind brushing through pine needles. He sits up, draws the blanket around his shoulders, and smiles. The inn feels like a held breath between dreams and day. After a while, the old woman appears, carrying a pot of tea and 2 cups. Her face is lined with sleep, but her eyes are bright. "Morning," she says kindly. "You stayed through the night this time," the bard smiles. "It was a good place to rest." She pours the tea, and the soft sound fills the quiet like a tiny stream. "You'll be on your way soon, I expect," she says. He nods, wrapping his hands around the warm cup. "There's a river down the valley," he says. "I remember it. I'll follow it toward the coast before the next snow." The woman looks thoughtful. "That river's been frozen for weeks," she says. "You'll have to tread lightly." The bard chuckles softly. "I'll go gently," he promises. They share their tea in silence for a while. The morning deepens, and light begins to dance across the walls. The scent of pine fills the air again as someone adds a log to the hearth. When the bard finally stands, he adjusts his cloak and shoulders his lute. The old woman hands him a small loaf of bread wrapped in cloth. "For the road," she says. He bows his head slightly. "Thank you for warmth, for remembering." Safe travels, Snowbard, she murmurs, smiling. He steps outside, and the cold air greets him like an old friend, sharp, clean, alive. His boots sink into the fresh snow. Behind him, the door closes softly, and the smoke from the chimney rises straight into the pale blue sky. The forest seems different in the morning light. Shadows have softened. Every branch glitters with frost. He follows the narrow trail until the trees begin to thin, and then he sees it, the river, wide and slow, winding between snow-covered banks. Its surface is sheathed in glassy ice, smooth and faintly blue. The bard stops at the edge of the water. The world here is utterly still. No wind, no bird song, just the faint murmur of ice shifting somewhere beneath. He kneels, touches the surface with gloved fingers, and smiles at the reflection looking back, older now, a little more worn, but peaceful. From the folds of his cloak, he takes out a small leather pouch. Inside are a few trinkets he's gathered along his travels, a seashell, a piece of green glass, a tiny bell. Among them lies a silver coin, the twin of the one he left behind at the first inn. He places it on the ice. It glints faintly in the morning sun. Every song needs an echo, he whispers. He lifts his lute and begins to play. The sound is soft, carried gently by the open air. Notes drift over the river, echoing faintly off the banks. It's a song without words, something between farewell and gratitude. As he plays, a soft wind stirs, almost as if the world is listening. Snowflakes begin to fall again, slow and steady. They land on his cloak, on the frozen river, on the coin that glimmers faintly through the white. When the last note fades, he lets the silence linger. Then he straightens, adjusts his pack, and turns toward the east. The snow-covered path stretches on, curving out of sight beyond the trees. As he walks, he hums quietly, letting the rhythm of his steps blend with the faint sigh of the wind. The world feels softer now, as if wrapped in a hush of contentment. Somewhere behind him, far back in the forest, the old woman stands by her window, watching the snow fall. She hums the same tune he played last night, almost without realizing it. The sound fills the quiet in warm and familiar, and farther still, in the first village he visited, the one with the child by the fire, a little girl stirs in her sleep. She hears that same melody in her dreams, faint but clear. It carries her deeper into rest, peaceful and calm. The bard's music, it seems, has lingered in the air, passing softly from place to place like a drifting snowflake. By midday, he reaches a wide clearing where the forest ends. The sky stretches open, pale blue and endless. The river winds away into the distance, its ice catching the light like glass. The bard pauses and breathes in deeply. The cold air fills his lungs, sharp but clean. He closes his eyes for a moment, listening, not for words, not for melodies, but for the quiet between them. In that stillness, he feels the world breathe back, the faint hum of life beneath the frozen earth, the far-off cry of a hawk, the rhythm of his own heart, steady and sure. When he opens his eyes, he smiles again. There are more roads ahead, more stories waiting in villages he has yet to see. But for now, the day feels enough. He walks on, slow and unhurried, his boots crunching softly in the snow. His shadow stretches long across the ice, following him like an old friend. Somewhere above, the sun slips behind a thin veil of cloud, and flakes begin to fall again, small, light, endless. And as they fall, the bard hums once more, his voice low and even, blending with the sound of the snow. The story slows. Now, dear listener, the air grows still again, the snow endless and kind. Imagine the hush of that world, soft white light, the distant sound of a lute, the warmth that stays with you even after the fire fades. You can rest here too, just for a while. Let your breath match the rhythm of the snow. Let the quiet settle over you. You are safe, and the night is gentle. Settle in a little deeper. Let your body grow heavy and warm. The snow is still falling in our story, light, slow, like drifting feathers. You can hear it landing softly on your sleeves, your hair, your breath. Now, let's follow our bard toward the coast, where the sound of waves waits beneath a frozen sky. By the time the bard leaves the forest behind, the land has opened wide again. The road dips and curves gently downward toward the sea. The air grows sharper here, touched with salt. Though it is winter still, the faint scent of the ocean rises with the wind, cold, clean, full of memory. He walks slowly, his cloak brushing against the snow-dusted grass. The path narrows where it nears the cliffs, and far below, the water moves, slow waves rolling and breaking against dark stones. They glimmer faintly, silver and blue, beneath the pale sunlight. It has been many months since the bard last saw the sea. He pauses, closes his eyes, and listens. The hush of waves is a rhythm older than any song he knows. It feels like the world breathing in and out, steady and calm. The wind plays with the hem of his cloak, tugging it gently. Somewhere ahead, beyond the curve of the cliff, a light flashes faintly, a beacon that turns with patient grace. The lighthouse. He remembers it from another time, another journey. He remembers the man who kept the fire there, an old keeper with weathered hands and eyes like twilight. It has been years since they met, but the memory feels near, like a melody he could almost hum. The bard follows the narrow trail that leads down toward the shore. The snow thins where the wind has swept it away, leaving patches of frost-slick rock. The sound of the waves grows louder, a low murmur that rises and falls around him. At the base of the cliff, the lighthouse stands tall, its stones whitewashed and worn. A small house sits beside it, smoke curling from the chimney. The smell of burning driftwood mixes with the salt air. He approaches slowly, boots crunching on the frozen ground. The door opens before he can knock. An old man stands there, wrapped in a thick wool coat. His beard is gray, his face lined, but his eyes are bright with recognition. "Well, I'll be," the man says, smiling. The snow bard returns. The bard laughs softly. "And you still keep the light burning?" "Someone has to," the keeper says. "Come in before the wind steals your warmth." The bard steps inside. The house is small but cozy, filled with the scent of wood smoke and tea. A single lantern hangs near the window, and beside it, a narrow table covered in old maps and bits of polished glass. The sound of the waves fills the space like a heartbeat. The keeper sets a pot on the stove and pours steaming tea into 2 clay cups. "It's been 10 years, he asks. "Close enough," says the bard, taking a seat by the window. "I've walked many roads since then, and still you look the same," the keeper says, handing him a cup. "You must have found the secret to staying young." The bard smiles faintly. Perhaps the secret is never stopping long enough to grow old. The keeper chuckles. "A fine thought for a man with sore feet, I'm sure." They sit in easy silence for a while, sipping tea, listening to the sea breathe just beyond the wall. The light of the lantern flickers over the keeper's maps, the ink lines glimmering faintly. After a while, the keeper leans back in his chair. "Do you remember the last time you were here?" he asks. "I do," says the bard. "You told me you were waiting for a song that could reach the sea." The keeper nods, still waiting. "Maybe the sea already knows all the songs," the bard says quietly. "Maybe so," the keeper says, "but I'd like to hear one anyway, just to remind me that the world beyond these cliffs still sings." The bard sets down his cup and reaches for his lute. He wipes a trace of salt from the strings, tunes it softly, then looks up at the keeper with a gentle smile. "Then let's see what the wind remembers." He begins to play, slow at first, each note rising and falling with the rhythm of the waves. The music fills the small house like light spilling through a window. It is a song of distance and return, of the way water meets stone again and again, never tiring, never ending. The keeper closes his eyes. The sound seems to stretch outward, as though the sea itself is listening. Outside, the wind quiets. The waves soften, their rhythm gentler now, more in tune with the melody. The bard's voice joins the music, low, steady, full of warmth. The words are few, simple, like a prayer whispered into the wind. Every shore remembers sound. Every wave returns again. Carry peace and carry light until the tide is still. The final chord fades into silence. The keeper opens his eyes. There is a hint of moisture there, but he smiles. "That's the one," he says softly. "That's the song I was waiting for." The bard inclines his head. "Then the sea will remember it too." They sit in silence again, listening to the waves reclaim the quiet. The keeper's hand rests on the table, tapping lightly in time with the fading tune. The bard looks out the window, watching the lighthouse beams sweep across the gray water, a slow, endless circle of light. Outside, the snow has stopped. The sky has cleared, revealing a horizon washed in pale blue and silver. Later, when the night returns, the two men climb the narrow stairs to the top of the lighthouse. The lantern flame burns steady, its glow bright against the gathering dark. From here, the sea stretches in every direction, vast, calm, eternal. The bard stands at the railing, his cloak fluttering in the cold wind. "It's beautiful," he murmurs. The keeper nods. The sea always is, even when it's wild. For a while, they simply stand together, listening to the hush of waves far below. The bard feels the wind against his face, the cold sting of salt on his lips. And beneath it all, he feels something quieter still, the same calm that lives in every song, every snowfall, every resting breath. When they descend again, the keeper lays a hand on his shoulder. "Stay the night," he says. "The wind is kind now, but she changes quickly." "I'll stay," the bard says softly. "Just one more night." That evening, they sit again by the fire. The bard plays one last tune, a lullaby of the sea and the snow, of roads traveled and warmth found. The keeper hums along, his voice low and rough, but full of peace. When the song ends, the bard leans back, eyes closing. The fire crackles softly. The keeper's breathing slows beside him. The world narrows to warmth and rhythm and quiet. Outside, the waves roll on, steady and timeless. Now, dear listener, take a deep breath in. Feel the hush of that lighthouse, the soft glow of firelight on stone walls, the sea's endless whisper beneath it all. You can rest there too, if you wish, safe, warm, and calm. The story isn't over, but the night has grown kind and slow. Let the waves keep singing for you. All right, Settle yourself again. Let the breath come softly, like the pull and release of a quiet tide. The fire in the lighthouse has burned down to a steady glow, and our bard, still wrapped in warmth, begins to wake to another day. The morning air smells of salt and damp stone. The keeper is already awake, tending the fire in the small stove. He glances up when the bard stirs and offers a quiet smile. Clear skies today, he says. The wind's turned gentle again. It'll be a good day for walking. The bard sits up, rubbing his eyes, then looks toward the window. The sky outside is pale, washed with early light. The sea rolls slowly and silver. There's peace in the sight of it, the kind of peace that feels alive. After breakfast, they step outside together. The snow that had fallen the night before has melted along the rocks, leaving small pools that mirror the sky. The lighthouse stands behind them, its flame still burning faintly in the daylight. The keeper hands the bard a small pouch of dried fruit and bread. For the road, he says, repeating the same kindness others have offered along the way. The bard accepts it with a nod. You've given me more than food, he says. You've given me another song. The keeper laughs softly. Then take it with you. Let the sea hum it back when you're gone. They clasp hands, a brief, firm hold, and then the bard turns toward the path that winds along the coast. The waves follow him, rolling and breaking just below. The gulls cry overhead, white against the blue. He walks slowly, not from weariness, but because the world here seems to move at its own unhurried pace. The cliffs rise high beside him. The wind smells of brine and wild herbs. Sometimes he stops just to listen to the sea, the wind, his own quiet heartbeat. By midday, the cliffs lower into grassy dunes. The land flattens, and far ahead he can see the outline of another village, small, almost hidden by mist. Thin trails of smoke rise from a few chimneys, faint against the pale sky. It's quieter than most places he's known. Even the seagulls avoid it, circling wide before turning back toward the open sea. The bard keeps walking. The path becomes sand. Each step makes a soft sound, a whisper more than a crunch. When he reaches the first cottage, he notices the shutters are closed tight. No voices, no laughter, only the wind moving through gaps in the wooden walls. He pauses, listening. There's something strange about the silence here, not heavy or sad, but deep, like the breath the world takes before a song. A door opens slowly from one of the cottages. An old man steps out, leaning on a stick. His hair is white, his clothes plain but neat. He peers at the bard, eyes narrowing in curiosity. Not many travelers come this far, the old man says. His voice is steady, though quiet. I follow the sea, the bard replies with a gentle smile, and the road led me here. The old man nods slowly. Then the road must remember us better than most folk do. It's been years since anyone's sung in this village. No songs, the bard asks softly. Not since the storm, the man says. Long ago now. Took half our boats and half our hearts, I think. After that, no one much felt like singing. The bard looks toward the shore. The tide is low, and the sand is smooth. The remnants of old boats lie scattered, bits of weathered wood, a tangle of rope, a single mast leaning like a memory. He nods. Maybe songs return when they're needed, he says. The old man studies him, then gives a small, tired smile. If that's true, then perhaps you were meant to walk this way. He gestures toward a small bench near the shore. If you'd play a little, maybe the sea will remember the sound of joy. The bard sits, resting his lute across his knees. The wind brushes his face, carrying the faint scent of salt and kelp. He tunes the strings slowly, letting each note drift into the air. Then, gently, he begins to play. At first, the sound feels almost too soft for the wide quiet of the shore. But the waves catch it, carrying it outward in long echoes. The notes bend and blend with the sea's rhythm. The old man closes his eyes, the lines of his face softening. One by one, other villagers step out of their homes, drawn by the sound. A woman with a basket, a child clutching a wooden toy, a fisherman with weathered hands. They gather slowly, their breaths visible in the cold air. The bard's song changes. It brightens, lifting like a bird rising on the wind. He doesn't sing of loss, though the notes remember it. He sings of light returning after long gray days, of hands rebuilding what storms once broke, of voices finding courage again. The villagers stand still, listening. Some smile. One woman wipes her eyes. A small boy reaches for his father's hand. When the last note fades, the silence that follows is soft, not empty, but full. The old man opens his eyes. "It's been a long time since we heard that kind of quiet," he says. "Quiet?" the bard asks. "The kind that comes after music," the man replies. "When everything feels whole again," the bard nods slowly. Then perhaps the village remembers how to sing. A small voice speaks up, the boy who'd been holding his father's hand. "Can you teach me that song?" he asks shyly. The bard smiles. "Of course, but only if you promise to make it your own." The boy nods eagerly. The bard leans down, plucks a simple melody, and hums it softly. The boy repeats it, his voice uncertain but bright. The villagers begin to hum too, following the tune. Soon the air fills with sound, fragile at first, then growing stronger, warmer, like sunlight after a storm. The bard sets his lute aside and listens. The song belongs to them now. As evening falls, the bard sits alone by the shore. The villagers have returned to their homes, but faint traces of their singing drift on the wind, mixing with the rhythm of the waves. The sky glows faint pink, fading slowly into night. He looks out across the water, where the first stars have begun to appear. He feels a quiet peace settle through him, not pride, not sadness, just calm. The kind that comes when something lost has been gently returned. He closes his eyes and lets the sea's whisper carry him towards stillness. And now, listener, take another slow breath. Feel the hush of that village, the calm rhythm of the sea. The music has faded, but its warmth lingers quiet, steady, safe. Let that calm find you too. Your breathing is slow and soft, your thoughts moving like waves against the shore. The night is kind, and you are resting within it. Now just breathe quietly for a moment. Imagine the sound of waves at night. They move in and out, soft as your own breathing. Somewhere beyond that sound, a small fire burns on the beach, and our bard is resting beside it, listening to the sea. He wakes before sunrise. The air is cool, but not cold. The horizon holds a thin line of silver light, and the sea glimmers faintly beneath it. The village behind him is still sleeping. Only the tide moves, brushing gently against the sand. The bard stands, shakes the sand from his cloak, and looks east. Beyond the curve of the coastline, faint and far, rises a dark shape, the ruins of an old abbey standing alone on the cliffs. He has heard of it in other songs, old ones sung by travelers and monks. They say its bells once rang across the whole coast, calling fishermen home through fog and storm. He begins to walk. The sand gives way to rocky ground again. Frost glitters along the stones, catching the first light of morning. Birds wheel slowly above the cliffs, their wings white against the pale sky. Each step carries him higher, the air growing crisper, cleaner. By the time the sun has fully risen, he reaches the edge of the abbey grounds. The ruins stand wide and open, their stone arches rising like ribs of a great sleeping creature. Ivy winds through the walls, and patches of moss soften the floor. The bard moves carefully through the old courtyard. The sound of his boots echoes softly off the stone. It's quiet here, not empty, but watchful, as though the place is holding its breath. In the center of the courtyard stands what remains of a bell tower. The bell itself is gone, but a single rope still hangs from the beam above, frayed and swaying gently in the wind. He reaches out, brushing it with his fingertips. The rope makes a faint sound, almost like a sigh. "Long ago," he murmurs, "someone rang this to bring others home." His voice seems to stir something. A few birds lift from the tower, fluttering into the cold air. Their wings beat softly, scattering bits of frost from the stones. The bard sits near the base of the tower, his back against the worn stone. He sets his lute across his lap, but doesn't play yet. Instead, he listens to the faint whisper of wind moving through cracks in the walls, to the far-off crash of the waves below, to the quiet that fills every space between. He feels something here, something old and kind, the kind of peace that has been waiting for a long time. When he finally begins to play, it's not a song he knows. The melody comes slow and unplanned, shaped by the air, the sea, the silence. Each note drifts upward, circling the tower, echoing faintly against the stone. It feels like he is ringing a bell that no longer exists. The wind rises, catching the sound, carrying it down toward the cliffs, over the water. And somewhere far below, the sea answers a low, soft murmur, steady as breath. He plays for a long while, until the morning grows bright and the tide begins to climb. When the song fades, he sets the lute aside and closes his eyes. For a moment, it feels as though the world is still singing quietly around him, even after the music has stopped. He thinks of all the places he has been, the candlelit inns, the quiet forests, the frozen rivers. Each one has left its sound in him. And now, all those sounds have joined here, in this place that waits between land and sea, between silence and song. A thought comes softly, like something half-remembered. Maybe the world doesn't need to be sung to. Maybe it's always singing, and we just forget to listen. He breathes out, long and slow, and lets that thought rest. Later, he explores what remains of the abbey's chapel. The roof has fallen in, but one wall still stands, its stones engraved with faint markings. He runs his fingers over the carvings, tracing their worn shapes, fragments of words, prayers, songs. One carving catches his eye, a small symbol, circular, surrounded by a pattern of tiny lines. He's seen it before, carved into the side of his lute, a mark left by its maker. He smiles faintly. "So that's where you came from," he says quietly to the instrument. The wind moves through the chapel then, not harsh, just enough to stir the air. It sounds almost like a sigh of recognition. The bard steps to the doorway, and looks out across the sea. The water gleams, endless and calm. The sun is climbing higher now, turning the waves gold at their crests. He thinks of the keeper at the lighthouse, of the old woman in the forest, of the villagers by the shore. Each had kept something alive, warmth, light, song, through winters of their own. He feels a gentle gratitude rise within him, not for the journey itself, but for the quiet moments it has given him. The stillness between steps, the space between notes. He stays there through the afternoon, resting, writing a few lines in the sand with a small stick. The world hums softly when you're still close enough to hear it. As evening approaches, he builds a small fire near the edge of the cliff. The sea below glows orange with the setting sun. He takes out a small piece of bread from his pack, eats slowly, then plays one final tune, a soft, wordless song that rises with the smoke. When night falls, the stars appear in slow clusters, filling the dark like lanterns. The fire crackles low. The bard wraps his cloak around his shoulders, lies back on the cool ground, and watches the constellations drift above him. Each one feels like a note written in the sky, part of a melody too vast to be heard all at once. He smiles, feeling his eyes grow heavy. I think, he whispers to the night, that the song was never mine. I was just carrying it for a while. The wind answers softly, brushing through his hair. And as he drifts toward sleep, the sound of the sea and the slow rhythm of his breath begin to blend together. One endless, soothing sound that holds the whole world in its gentleness. And now, dear listener, let that same calm find you. Feel the quiet weight of night, the cool peace of the sea, the steady rhythm of your breath. You have walked far with our bard, through snow and firelight and song. You can rest now, safe and warm. The story lingers, but for tonight, it can sleep beside you. Now, settle in and take a long, slow breath. Let your body feel the gentle pull of the earth beneath you. Imagine the soft hush of early morning, the sky stretching wide, pale and calm. The sea still whispers in the distance, steady and patient. Our bard is stirring once again, ready to continue his quiet journey. Spring has begun to stretch its fingers across the coast. Snow has melted entirely, leaving tiny green shoots in the cliffs and wildflowers peeking through the sand. The air smells faintly of fresh earth, salt, and new leaves. Birds are more vocal now, singing short, soft melodies that float on the breeze. The bard walks steadily, his lute slung over his shoulder, each step deliberate and unhurried. The path winds down toward the village where he first shared his song with the villagers. The memory of that night, the warmth of their faces, the fragile humming of voices rising together, floats softly in his mind. As he nears the village, the familiar shapes of cottages and chimneys appear. Smoke curls gently into the sky, and he notices the gardens beginning to bloom. Children run along the narrow paths, their laughter mingling with the wind. A woman hangs linen to dry, and the rhythm of her work creates a quiet music that the bard recognizes, the same music that exists in every small, ordinary moment. The village is waking, alive with soft, ordinary magic. The bard steps carefully onto the path leading to the shore, where the small crowd had gathered months ago. He sees the same old man, now tending a patch of herbs by the gate. Their eyes meet, and a small smile passes between them, not hurried, not forced, but full of calm understanding. "You've returned," the man says softly. And the village is singing again, the bard replies. The man nods, gesturing toward the shore. And it will keep singing long after you leave. The bard lowers his gaze to the sand, noticing small shells glinting in the sunlight. Tiny waves lap gently at the edge, carrying the faint scent of seaweed and morning. Each wave moves as if it has remembered the song from months ago, repeating it just softly enough to be known. He sets his lute across his lap and begins to play one more time, a melody that gathers pieces of every song he has carried. Each note drifts over the village, rising into the air like smoke, mingling with the smell of baking bread and the murmur of morning conversations. Villagers pause to listen, not because they must, but because their hearts remember the calm that comes from quiet music. Children hum softly, learning the melody as they go. Even the birds seem to tilt their heads, catching the song as it rises above rooftops. The old man hums along, gently swaying to the rhythm. Others join, quietly, slowly, until the village is filled with soft music that doesn't demand attention but invites presence. It lingers in the air, wrapping each listener in warmth and gentle familiarity. The bard finishes the song, letting the last note fade like sunlight slipping behind clouds. He closes his eyes, feeling the soft pulse of life around him, the village, the sea, the sky above. He realizes, without thought or hurry, that this moment is exactly where he belongs. He stands, dusting sand from his cloak, and begins to walk slowly through the village, nodding quietly to neighbors who smile in recognition. Every step feels measured, meaningful, gentle. There is no rush, no need for applause. The song has returned to the hearts of the people, and that is enough. As evening falls, the bard walks to the highest point near the village, a small hill overlooking the coastline. He sits, setting his lute beside him, and watches the sun sink behind the distant cliffs. The sky deepens, from gold to soft pink to twilight blue. The sea reflects these colors, rolling quietly as if nodding to the rhythm of the day. He breathes in the last light, then exhales slowly, letting the warmth of the village, the wind, and the sea settle into him. Around him, the world hums, a soft, steady song, and he realizes that he has carried it gently through his journey, sharing it whenever it was needed. The stars begin to appear in clusters, soft and distant. One by one, they light up the sky. The air grows cooler, carrying the faint, comforting scent of evening tides and blooming flowers. He pulls his cloak closer and rests his head against a soft patch of grass. And here, in the quiet of the village evening, the bard lets himself drift. The memory of snow, of firelight, of songs shared along cold shores, mixes with the comfort of this moment. He feels carried by a gentle current, like a small boat on calm water, slowly, safely moving toward night. And now, listener, feel yourself in this calm, too. Imagine soft twilight skies, the gentle roll of the sea, the warmth of a quiet village. Let your breathing match the slow, steady rhythm of waves. Your thoughts can drift as freely as the song that fills the air. Each note, each breeze, each soft step of the bard guides you toward deep, restful sleep. You are safe, you are held, you are ready to drift, slowly, softly, into night. The night stretches out, soft and endless. The bard stays atop the hill, letting the gentle dark settle around him. The air is cool but comforting, carrying the faint scent of sea spray mixed with the warmth of distant fires in the village below. He listens to the quiet rhythm of life, continuing unseen. An owl hoots far off, a dog stirs in its kennel, the faint clatter of someone securing shutters. He lets his thoughts drift, not racing, not pressing, just floating, like clouds in a calm sky. He remembers a time long ago, in a forest far from here, where he slept beneath a canopy of trees. The leaves had whispered above him all night, soft, repeating their secrets, and he had felt, even then, the same gentle pull of peace that comes from listening. Tonight feels like that forest again, though now he is on a cliff with the sea beneath him. Below, the village lanterns glow softly, shadows flicker across walls, moving like slow dancers. The bard imagines the people within their own small worlds of comfort, routine, and quiet joy. He smiles faintly, thinking of the baker kneading dough, the children learning a song, the elder who always hums while repairing tools. Each life is a soft note in a larger melody that the night holds, steady and unhurried. He picks up his lute again. This time, his fingers trace the strings without pressing, letting them vibrate with invisible music. It is a gentle, almost imperceptible sound, like a distant chime on a windless morning. He closes his eyes and imagines the music flowing outward, circling the village, the cliffs, the waves, until it blends with the night itself. The stars overhead seem to shimmer more brightly, as if responding. The first constellations of evening cool silver against the deepening blue looked like tiny lanterns hung across the sky. The bard imagines himself walking along those lines of light, stepping softly from star to star, each one radiating calm, each one holding the quiet promise of rest. A gentle breeze stirs. It carries whispers of the sea, soft shivers of distant waves, and the faint scent of salt water mixed with pine from inland woods. The bard breathes it in slowly, feeling it fill him with calm, his chest rising and falling like the tide below. The world feels wide and still, and he feels at peace with every inch of it. Time seems suspended. Hours pass, though he does not notice. He lies back on the grass, the soft earth molding beneath him. Above, the moon has risen, a pale guardian casting silver over rooftops, cliffs, and waves. Shadows stretch long and quiet, cradling the village and the cliffs like a soft blanket. He remembers all the winters he has crossed, all the songs he has carried from one village to another. Each memory drifts past like a cloud, a candlelit in where travelers shared bread and stories, a frozen river where he watched frost gather on reeds, a woodland glade where the dew on spiderwebs looked like tiny diamonds. Each scene is calm, each memory a gentle lullaby to carry him further into the night. His hands rest lightly on the lute. He hums a soft, wordless tune. It flows slowly, like a stream curling through grass, quiet and deliberate. He imagines the melody touching each villager, wrapping them in warmth and safety. Even the animals in the village seem to listen, pausing in their movements, as if acknowledging the song. As midnight approaches, the world feels suspended in a delicate hush. The tide below mirrors the sky, smooth and silver in the moonlight. Each wave moves with purpose, yet no rush, like the perfect rhythm of breathing. He closes his eyes fully now, letting the song in his chest mingle with the soft, natural music all around him. The bard's thoughts begin to dissolve into the night. The memory of snowfalls, of hearths, of winds over cliffs, all weaves together into a soft, continuous thread of calm. He lets himself drift further, the edges of consciousness softening. Every sound, a gentle wave, a bird's distant call. The rustle of leaves feels like a gentle hand guiding him toward deep, restful sleep. Even in dreams, the village continues its quiet life. Lanterns glow in the dreamscape, gentle voices hum, and the sea keeps its slow, rhythmic breathing. The bard moves among them lightly, feeling weightless, as if he, too, has become part of the quiet melody of the world. And there, beneath the moon, on the hill overlooking the village and the endless sea, he sleeps at last, carrying with him the calm of twilight, the gentle promise of morning, and the soft echo of music that never truly ends. Morning arrives slowly over the village. A pale, warm light spills across rooftops, brushing the chimneys with soft gold. Birds begin to call again, gentle trills that rise and fall with the wind. The bard stirs atop his hill, stretching lightly, feeling the soft dew on the grass beneath him. His cloak, draped over his shoulders, smells faintly of salt and pine. He watches as villagers begin their day. A woman carrying a basket moves through the path between cottages, her steps quiet but steady. A small child follows, picking tiny flowers from the roadside. The bard smiles softly, imagining the simple joy of their morning, the ease of movement in a world that is slow and calm. He rises and begins to walk down the hill, the grass brushing lightly against his boots. The village seems to greet him with every step. Doors open with soft creaks. A dog trots alongside him for a few steps, tail wagging gently, before trotting back to the yard. Even the air seems warmer here, carrying hints of baking bread, fresh herbs, and the faint temps of sea salt. The bard finds the village square, bathed in morning light. The fountain trickles softly, water moving steadily over stone, a quiet, rhythmic sound that blends with the distant cries of gulls. Villagers pause to exchange greetings. Some carry baskets, some buckets, and a few are simply walking, savoring the slow rhythm of a new day. He stops near the fountain and sets his lute down. His fingers brush over the strings as if testing the morning itself. Each note is soft, gentle, barely there, and it seems to mingle with the sounds of the village. Water dripping, wind moving through trees, the faint creak of shutters in the breeze. He begins to hum. The tune is quiet, slow, stretching out like the sun's first rays over the rooftops. People glance his way, but they do not stop. They listen as they continue with their tasks, letting the sound wrap around them like a gentle breeze. A child, curious, approaches. She tilts her head and smiles. The bard nods gently, letting her hum along softly. Her small voice blends with his melody, delicate and airy. For a moment, it feels as though the entire village has paused in this soft, shared music, each note carrying warmth, safety, and calm. The bard continues through the village, walking slowly past cottages, gardens, and narrow streets. He notices little things: a cat stretched across a doorstep, a patch of flowers growing through a crack in the stone, a wooden wheel left resting against a barn. Each detail feels alive, infused with quiet magic, a world alive with gentle rhythms, waiting only to be noticed. He stops at the edge of the village, near the cliffs where the sea stretches endlessly. The waves roll in, steady and calm, a soft background to the morning's quiet life. He sits on a flat stone, pulling his cloak tighter around him. The wind brushes his hair, cool and clean, carrying the faint cry of distant seabirds. He closes his eyes and listens. The sound of the sea, the village, the birds, Even the faint whisper of clouds above blends into a steady, soothing rhythm. His fingers graze the strings of his lute lightly, not to play, but to feel the vibrations, to let the music of the world move through him. Time stretches and folds in this quiet morning. Hours pass without hurry. The sun rises higher, painting the sea with glimmers of silver. Shadows of the cliffs move slowly over the waves. Villagers carry on with gentle care, some tending gardens, some mending nets, some walking along paths just to enjoy the calm day. The bard's presence seems to mingle with their rhythm, invisible yet felt, like a faint hum in the air. He thinks of the journeys he has taken through forests, snow, and distant towns. All of them have led him here, to this quiet place where life moves slowly, where music and presence are enough. His thoughts are light, floating like clouds. There is nothing urgent, nothing demanding attention, only the gentle, persistent peace of a world in motion at its own quiet pace. He leans back on the stone again, letting the sun warm his face. His eyes close as he feels the wind brush softly against him. Somewhere far above, a hawk glides across the sky, wings stretched wide, effortless. Below, the waves break gently against the cliffs. The sound is steady, hypnotic, like the slow beating of a heart. He hums again, a tune that rises and falls with the wind. It is quiet and calm, not meant for anyone to hear, but felt everywhere. It moves through the village, across the cliffs, over the sea. He imagines it reaching the far-off forest where he had slept under trees months ago, touching every place he has ever been with the same gentle peace. As evening approaches, the bard gathers his lute. The sun dips low, turning the sky to soft shades of rose and lavender. Shadows stretch long and slow across the village, and the air carries the faint scent of evening fires. He walks slowly toward the village square again, letting each step match the calm rhythm of the day winding down. Villagers notice him, nodding or smiling softly as they move about their chores. Some pause to listen as he begins to play once more, slow, quiet, and deliberate. The notes ripple gently through the evening air, soft as a whisper. Children stop for a moment, humming along. Even the animals pause in their quiet evening routines. The village, the sea, the wind, and the hills all seem to bend toward the music, moving together in calm harmony. The bard finishes his song and sits quietly, letting the last note fade into the evening. He watches the stars appear, faint and shimmering. Each one is a tiny, distant light, steady and patient. He breathes deeply, feeling the calm settle fully into him. He leans back, closing his eyes, the soft air brushing his face. The world around him hums gently, carrying the final remnants of the day's warmth. The tide moves in steady, endless waves, as if breathing with him. The village glows softly in the distance, and in that perfect, quiet moment, he drifts toward sleep, the soft, persistent rhythm of the world cradling him gently. Night settles fully over the village. A soft hush descends, broken only by the distant sound of waves rolling onto the cliffs and the faint creak of wooden shutters in the gentle breeze. Lanterns glow faintly in the windows, casting pools of warm light across cobblestone paths. The bard walks slowly among them, his boots making only the softest sounds, careful not to disturb the quiet peace of evening. He pauses at a small garden where herbs and flowers stretch toward the silver light of the moon. Each leaf seems touched with dew, shimmering faintly. He bends, letting his fingers brush softly across the plants. The scent of lavender, thyme, and rosemary rises gently into the night air, calming both body and mind. He inhales deeply and exhales slowly, letting the rhythm of his breath match the slow pulse of life around him. A cat emerges from the shadows, patting softly on silent paws. It pauses, curious, and rubs against the bard's cloak. He smiles, speaking in a low, quiet tone, not needing words for the animal to feel safe. Together, they walk a little further along the village path, past the quiet cottages and flickering lanterns, where the gentle sounds of life still hum beneath the surface. He stops by the fountain once more. The water flows steadily, each ripple catching the moonlight, reflecting 1,000 tiny stars. He sets his lute gently on the edge of the stone and touches the strings lightly, letting the soft vibration mingle with the gentle trickle of water. The music is quiet and delicate, a lullaby for the village, for the night, and for himself. Somewhere in the distance, a child hums along to the melody. Their small voice drifts faintly across the night, blending with the sound of water, wind, and the soft rustle of leaves. The bard listens, letting each sound layer over the next like a gentle, harmonious wave. The village breathes slowly, as if lulled by this quiet, continuous music. He thinks of the many nights he has traveled under stars like these. He remembers quiet inns, forests whispered over with wind, snow falling softly across empty fields. Each memory rises like smoke, warm and comforting, carrying the gentle reassurance that he has always found a place of calm no matter where he travels. He walks toward the cliffs now, where the sea stretches endlessly under the moon. The waves roll with a steady, unhurried rhythm, white tips glimmering faintly in the pale light. The sound is hypnotic, a gentle companion, rising and falling with each breath he takes. He sits at the edge of the cliff, legs dangling lightly, feeling the soft tug of the breeze across his face. The sky is deep and clear, scattered with constellations. Each star seems to twinkle softly, as if breathing with the world itself. The bard hums once more, letting the sound merge with the rustling of the wind, the quiet slap of waves, and the faint, distant sounds of the sleeping village. Each note is slow, deliberate, and full of calm, guiding his mind into stillness. A soft fog begins to drift inland, carrying the scent of the sea and the faint aroma of the village gardens. It curls gently around cottages, paths, and trees, muting colors and sounds, wrapping the night in a hushed, velvety layer. The bard closes his eyes, feeling the cool mist brush lightly against his skin, soothing and quieting his senses. He imagines the villagers now tucked in their homes, their own small breaths rising and falling in steady rhythm. Some dream of work done during the day, some of stories told around hearths, some of faraway lands, carried in the quiet folds of imagination. The bard hums to them softly, as if each note were a tiny thread of comfort, stitching them gently into the calm of night. The cat curls against his cloak, and he reaches down to stroke it lightly. Every sound, every small motion, is slow and deliberate. The air is thick with calm, the night stretching like a soft blanket across the village, across the hills, across the sea. The bard feels the rhythm of the world in his chest, a gentle heartbeat matching the ebb and flow of the tide below. He closes his eyes fully and listens. The waves, the wind, the faint rustle of distant leaves, the soft murmur of village lifefall converge into a single, soothing presence. His thoughts dissolve into the night. There is no hurry, no need for movement or thought, only the quiet, steady pulse of the world carrying him deeper into peace. He hums a final, soft note, letting it stretch and fade into the air. The cat sleeps against him. The stars shimmer faintly. The village breathes quietly, and the tide moves in gentle, eternal rhythm. The bard leans back, the soft grass and cool breeze cradling him, and slowly, slowly he drifts, drifting with the night, carried by sound, scent, and the gentle pulse of life all around him. The night deepens, and the moon climbs higher, spilling silver across the village rooftops and the waves below the cliffs. The bard sits quietly, letting the soft rhythm of the tide fill the silence. Each wave seems to rise and fall in time with his own breathing, steady, slow, reassuring. The cat shifts, curling even tighter against his cloak, and a light breeze stirs the soft rustle of leaves in the nearby trees. He recalls the stories of wandering minstrels long ago, carrying messages and melodies from village to village. He thinks of the way they would sit by hearths in distant towns, sharing tales of heroes, enchanted forests, and gentle magic. There was always a rhythm to their travels, a quiet patience, a slow unfolding of days filled with music and observation. Tonight, he feels that same rhythm in his own chest, steady and comforting. Across the village, a lantern flickers in a window. He imagines a family inside, gathered quietly around a table, their voices hushed in the golden glow. Perhaps they are telling a story of their own, passing the hours in gentle warmth. The bard hums softly, letting the sound drift over the village like a whisper, unnoticed yet felt, a tiny lullaby for anyone awake under the stars. He leans back on the soft grass, gazing at the sky. Clouds drift lazily, brushing against the constellations like soft silk. A shooting star traces a brief, silver path across the heavens. He watches it vanish slowly, imagining it carrying a quiet wish, a soft hope, or simply the calm promise of sleep. The wind carries the faint scent of the sea, mixed with evening flowers and wood smoke from distant chimneys. It brushes his face gently, cooling his skin and smoothing the tension from his shoulders. The bard breathes deeply, letting the rhythm of inhaling and exhaling match the ebb and flow of the tide below. Each breath carries him closer to a deep, restful calm. A soft rustle comes from the garden near the edge of the village, perhaps a night bird or a small animal moving among the herbs. The sound is quiet, natural, blending with the gentle song of the waves and the whispering wind. The bard closes his eyes and imagines the world as a soft, continuous hum, each sound a note in a slow, unending lullaby. He begins to hum again, soft, wordless, barely there. The melody curls upward and outward, touching the lantern-lit cottages, the quiet alleys, the distant cliffs, and even the horizon where the sea meets the sky. It is a sound of presence without urgency, of calm without demand, a gentle thread weaving the night together. As he hums, he remembers snowfalls from past winters, when frost kissed the village rooftops and trees sparkled under quiet moonlight. He recalls the hush of snowfall, the way it softened every sound, muffled every movement, and carried a quiet magic that invited sleep. Tonight, even without snow, the stillness carries a similar hush, wrapping the village in soft, invisible warmth. The cat purrs softly against him, a low, rhythmic sound that blends perfectly with the whisper of the wind and the gentle wash of the waves. The bard smiles faintly, feeling a sense of connection to everything around him. The village, the cliffs, the sea, the distant stars, and even the drifting clouds above. Each element seems to breathe together, slow, patient, harmonious. He shifts slightly, brushing his hand across the grass. Each blade feels soft and cool, a gentle, grounding presence. He listens as the night unfolds, layer by layer, noticing the faintest details. A distant dog stirring, the quiet murmur of the sea, the occasional flap of wings as a bird moves through the night. Each sound is deliberate and slow, a reminder that the world itself is in no hurry. The bard hums once more, letting the soft melody mingle with the air. He imagines it traveling beyond the village, across fields and forests, over hills and rivers, carrying calm wherever it drifts. Each note is soft enough not to wake anyone, yet present enough to be felt, a gentle reassurance that the world is steady, safe, and at peace. As midnight shifts, casting silver shadows that stretch long and soft across the landscape, the bard lies back fully on the grass, feeling the cool earth beneath him and the gentle brush of wind against his face. The stars blink quietly above, each one a tiny point of calm, a distant lullaby in the infinite sky. He lets his mind drift like a feather on the tide, carried by the soft rhythm of the waves, the quiet village, and the tender hum of his own song. The world around him feels fluid, alive yet motionless, vast yet intimately close. Every sound, every scent, every small movement is a note in the slow, hypnotic cadence of night. Even the distant hills seem to breathe gently, soft contours glowing faintly in moonlight. He imagines traveling across them in dreams, each step light and slow, the grass brushing against his hands, the wind cool on his skin. Every detail is amplified gently in the imagination, each sensation soft, safe, and deeply calming. The bard's song fades almost completely, replaced by the soft music of the night itself, waves rolling, leaves whispering, a distant owl calling once, twice, then settling into silence. He closes his eyes fully, letting the quiet swell around him. His chest rises and falls with the slow rhythm of the world, and his mind drifts peacefully, softly, toward the gentle embrace of sleep. The bard drifts into a quiet, gentle sleep beneath the moonlit sky. In his dreams, the world stretches and unfolds like a slow river, winding through valleys, forests, and distant villages bathed in soft, golden light. He walks along paths lined with trees, their leaves whispering softly in a breeze that carries the faint scent of pine and wildflowers. Every step is calm, deliberate, and slow, as if the earth itself is rocking him gently with each movement. In the distance, he sees a village much like the one he visited earlier, but smaller, with thatched roofs and narrow cobblestone streets. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys, mingling with the sweet smell of bread baking in warm ovens. The villagers move quietly, smiling softly as they tend to gardens, sweep paths, and hang freshly washed clothes to dry. The bard notices the rhythm in their movements, their calm steps and steady breaths echoing the peaceful pulse of the dream. He stops near a fountain in the village square. Its water ripples in soft patterns, reflecting the warm light of lanterns swinging gently in the evening breeze. He kneels and runs his fingers through the cool water, feeling it slip smoothly between his hands. The sensation is soothing, grounding him deeper into the gentle, safe rhythm of the dream. A small child approaches, carrying a basket of tiny, freshly picked flowers. Their steps are light and quiet, and they smile shyly at the bard. He smiles back, nodding gently. The child places a flower near his lute, which rests beside the fountain, and the petals brush softly against the strings. A soft vibration hums through the air, like a whisper of the song he carried from the waking world into this dream. The bard begins to play again, softly, letting the notes drift upward, mingling with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant lapping of water against the village well. The melody is calm and steady, without hurry or urgency. Every note seems to blend seamlessly with the night, wrapping the village and himself in a blanket of quiet warmth. Beyond the village, a forest rises, dark yet welcoming. He steps into it, feeling the soft earth beneath his boots and the faint crunch of fallen leaves. Moonlight filters through the branches, casting shifting patterns on the ground. The forest is alive but gentle, alive with quiet creatures, moving slowly and carefully among the shadows. An owl hoots softly in the distance, and the bard smiles, listening to the night's subtle music. A narrow path winds through the trees, guiding him toward a gentle stream. Its water sparkles faintly, reflecting moonlight like scattered silver coins. He kneels and touches the cool surface, watching ripples spread outward, slowly, calmingly. Each ripple seems to carry away tension, each soft sound of moving water lulling him further into relaxation. Along the stream, flowers glow faintly in the moonlight, petals unfolding slowly as if the night itself encourages them to breathe gently. He brushes a hand across the blooms, feeling their softness and noticing the faint fragrance carried on the breeze. The air is fresh, clean, and filled with the gentle hum of night insects and distant birds settling into their nests. Further along, he sees a small wooden bridge arching lightly over the stream. He steps onto it, feeling the smooth wood beneath his feet. The bridge sways just slightly, a calm, steady motion that mirrors the rhythm of the waves from the waking world. He pauses mid-bridge, taking a deep breath, letting the quiet of the forest, the soft sound of water, and the gentle sway of the bridge carry him deeper into peace. Across the stream, the path leads him into a meadow bathed in silver moonlight. The grass sways softly in the wind, and wildflowers nod their heads in slow, rhythmic motion. The air is cool and carries the faint scent of distant rain and fresh earth. He walks slowly, feeling the soft crunch of grass and flowers beneath his boots, listening to the gentle rustle of the meadow, and imagining that every sound, every movement, is a note in the lullaby of the world. A small stag appears in the distance, stepping lightly through the meadow. Its eyes reflect the moonlight, calm and patient. The bard watches quietly, not wishing to disturb it. The stag pauses, then moves gracefully across the meadow, blending with the silver light and the rhythm of the wind. Each movement feels slow and deliberate, teaching a quiet lesson in patience and presence. As he continues, he notices a hill rising gently ahead. On top of the hill stands a solitary tree, branches stretching wide, leaves rustling softly in the wind. He climbs slowly, each step deliberate and unhurried. Reaching the top, he sits beneath the tree, feeling the smooth bark against his back and the gentle sway of branches above. The moon hangs directly overhead, bathing him in soft, comforting light. He closes his eyes and listens. The night hums with a quiet song. The stream, the forest, the meadow, the wind, and the distant village all merging into a steady, soothing rhythm. He hums softly to himself, letting the vibration resonate in his chest, matching the slow beat of his heart and the rhythm of the world around him. The bard feels completely at ease, carried by the gentle pulse of nature, by the quiet magic of the dream, and by the soft, unbroken lullaby of the night. Every breath, every sound, every small detail blends into a single, continuous wave of calm. And slowly, slowly, he drifts even deeper, feeling the edges of the dream dissolve into pure, peaceful sleep. The bard drifts further into his dream, and suddenly the landscape shifts. Snow begins to fall softly, each flake drifting lazily from the sky. They shimmer in the moonlight, turning the meadow, the forest, and the distant hills into a quiet, silver world. The air is crisp, cool, and clean, carrying the faint scent of pine and frost. Each flake that lands on his skin melts softly, a delicate, cold kiss that somehow feels comforting and gentle. He walks slowly through the snow-covered meadow, boots leaving soft, muffled impressions in the fresh blanket of white. Every step is deliberate and quiet, the snow absorbing the sound, creating a hushed calm that seems to stretch endlessly. The trees along the meadow edges are dusted with snow, branches bending gently under the weight, and small icicles hang, catching moonlight like tiny lanterns. A frozen stream winds through the landscape, its surface smooth and glassy. He kneels beside it, tracing a finger along the ice and feeling the cool, smooth surface. Tiny cracks spread slowly from his touch, sparkling faintly as if illuminated from within. He listens to the quiet drip of melting snow from branches above, a gentle, random rhythm that harmonizes with his slow, steady breath. The bard notices animal tracks in the snow-soft paw prints leading off into the forest. He follows them lightly, careful not to disturb the quiet balance of this winter world. Somewhere nearby, a rabbit moves softly, its white coat blending with the snow, pausing only to sniff the air before disappearing again. Every movement, every sound, feels deliberate and unhurried, a lesson in calm presence. The forest grows denser, and the trees form delicate arches overhead, their branches sparkling with frost. Snow crunches softly beneath his boots, each step creating a quiet echo that seems to fade into the hushed night. The bard breathes in slowly, the cold air filling his lungs with clarity and calm, and exhales, letting tension slip away like snow melting in a gentle sun. He reaches a small cabin tucked between the trees, its roof heavy with snow. Smoke rises slowly from the chimney, curling into the crisp night air. The warm glow from the windows beckons, soft and inviting. He approaches quietly, hearing the faint crackle of firewood and imagining the scent of warm bread or stew inside. The cabin feels safe, a small haven within the snowy silence. Inside, a fire burns steadily in the hearth, casting a soft, flickering light across wooden walls. The bard sets down his lute and rubs his hands together, feeling the comforting warmth seep slowly into his fingers. The cat from the waking world is curled up on a fur rug, purring low and steady, its warmth a gentle companion. The snow outside falls silently, muffling every sound, making the cabin feel even more cocooned, quiet, and peaceful. He sits by the fire and begins to play his lute softly, each note floating into the cabin, blending with the gentle crackle of the flames. Outside, the wind whispers through the trees, soft enough not to disturb, yet present enough to remind him that the world continues in gentle rhythm. The bard hums along quietly, letting the music and the warmth wrap him in calm. Through the frosted window, he sees snowflakes drift slowly, spinning and twirling in the lantern light. Each flake seems unique, delicate, and magical, catching the glow and reflecting tiny rainbows across the cabin walls. He imagines the same gentle dance outside across rooftops, trees, and hills, a slow, hypnotic movement that invites the mind to rest. He thinks of the long roads he has traveled, the villages he has visited, and the quiet, snowy nights like this one. Each memory feels slow, deliberate, and soothing, a gentle reminder that time itself can pause, that there is peace in stillness, and comfort in the quiet presence of the world around him. A small bird lands on the snow-laden windowsill, flapping softly to balance itself. It tilts its head curiously, listening to the faint sound of lute strings, and then, satisfied, it rests quietly. The bard smiles faintly, feeling a connection to this tiny, delicate visitor. In this world of snow and quiet, everything has its rhythm, its place, its moment to breathe. He leans back into the rug, feeling the cat shift against him, and closes his eyes. The firelight flickers across the walls, the snow continues to fall softly, and the wind whispers gently through the branches outside. Every sound, every sensation, every quiet movement blends into a single, harmonious presence. The bard hums once more, softly and slowly, drifts deeper into sleep. The bard wakes softly in his dream, still nestled in the warmth of the cabin. Outside, the snowfall has thickened, layering the world in quiet white. He steps outside slowly, boots crunching softly against the fresh snow. The air is crisp and invigorating, brushing gently against his cheeks, while the vast hills stretch before him, glowing faintly in the moonlight. He begins to walk along a narrow, snow-covered path winding between the hills. Each step is deliberate, sinking slightly into the soft powder. The trees along the path are heavy with frost, their branches drooping gracefully. Tiny icicles hang like crystal ornaments, and the snow glows faintly under the pale light. He breathes slowly, deeply, letting the calm rhythm of his steps match the soft rise and fall of the hills around him. A frozen river appears ahead, smooth and glimmering in the moonlight. The bard approaches it carefully, listening to the faint sound of water flowing beneath the ice. Tiny ripples beneath the surface catch the light, sparkling like slow-moving stars. He kneels, running a gloved hand along the ice, feeling the smoothness, the cool firmness beneath his touch. Each sensation is slow, deliberate, and grounding. Snow-laden branches brush softly against his shoulders as he follows the river upstream. The world is hushed, muffled under the thick blanket of snow. Occasionally, a distant deer steps lightly across the frozen banks, pausing to glance at him with calm, gentle eyes before disappearing into the forest. Everything is deliberate, patient, and soft, the perfect pace for quiet reflection. As he climbs a gentle hill, the bard sees a distant village illuminated by lanterns. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys, twisting upward and mingling with the snowflakes drifting down. He walks slowly toward it, noticing the way the snow sparkles under the lantern light, each flake unique, tumbling gently like tiny dancers in the wind. The village seems still, peaceful, a haven in the quiet winter night. He approaches the village square, where a small fountain is frozen solid, its edges dusted with snow. Children play quietly nearby, their laughter muted by the soft snow. They make gentle snow angels and carefully build small snowmen, placing twigs for arms and tiny stones for eyes. The bard smiles softly, letting the gentle scene fill him with warmth and calm. In the village, smoke and candlelight spill from every window. He imagines families gathered by their fires, wrapped in woolen cloaks and thick blankets, sipping warm drinks and sharing quiet conversation. He hums softly to himself, letting the memory of traveling minstrel songs mix with the present calm, creating a soft, unbroken lullaby. Beyond the village, the path leads him to a small forest. Snowflakes drift from the treetops, settling silently on the needles and branches. Each flake seems deliberate and perfect, a tiny gift of stillness from the sky. He walks among the trees slowly, noticing the way the snow dampens every sound, creating a calm, hollow hush. Even his own footsteps feel part of a slow, peaceful rhythm, echoing softly and fading almost immediately. He comes upon a frozen pond nestled in a clearing. The surface is perfectly smooth, reflecting the pale moon and the surrounding frosted trees. A single swan glides slowly beneath the ice, visible in the faint clarity of the frozen water. The bard kneels at the edge, watching it move with calm, deliberate grace. He imagines himself gliding with the swan, moving slowly, effortlessly, merging with the silent rhythm of winter. As he continues his journey, the bard climbs a hill overlooking a vast winter valley. Snow blankets every hill and field, sparkling faintly like tiny diamonds. The wind moves softly, carrying the faint smell of pine and the crisp tang of cold air. He sits for a moment, resting on a soft snowdrift, feeling the stillness around him sink into his chest, slowing his heart and quieting his mind. Above him, the stars twinkle faintly through a thin veil of clouds. He imagines that each star is a gentle note in a slow, endless lullaby, vibrating softly across the silent hills and valleys. The snow below mirrors the sky, reflecting faint light and creating a sense of infinite calm. Every detail, every sensation is deliberate, slow, and soothing. He lies back in the snow for a moment, letting the cold press softly against him. The sensation is grounding, gentle, and reassuring. His breath mingles with the cold air, visible as small, fleeting clouds, rising and dispersing into the quiet night. The bard hums softly, barely audible, letting the note travel across the valley, blending with the wind, the snow, and the distant echo of the village lights. The forest beyond the hill seems to move slightly in the breeze, branches swaying, snow drifting slowly from their tips. He imagines following a path deeper into the forest, each step deliberate, every sound muted by the snow. The trees form a gentle canopy overhead, sheltering him, their frost-coated branches sparkling faintly in the moonlight. The world feels endless, safe, and perfectly still. A faint trail of animal tracks appears, leading him through the trees. He follows it slowly, imagining small foxes or rabbits moving softly among the snow, their steps deliberate and calm. Every footprint, every rustle, every faint whisper of wind seems to remind him to slow, breathe, and rest. Finally, he reaches a small clearing where the snow lies untouched, smooth and pristine. Moonlight falls across it like liquid silver, and he lies down, feeling the cold press gently against him. The night wraps around him like a soft blanket. He closes his eyes, letting the hush of the world, the quiet dance of snowflakes, and the distant warmth of villages lull him even deeper. The bard hums a final, soft note, barely audible, letting it drift across the snowy landscape. Every sound blends with the rhythm of snow falling, the distant river, and the rustling forest. The entire world breathes slowly, patiently, deliberately, and the bard drifts further, deeper, carried by the slow, unbroken lullaby of winter, the soft whisper of night, and the gentle pull of sleep. The bard rises slowly from the snowy clearing, feeling the cold beneath him, crisp yet comforting. He begins to climb a gentle mountain pass, each step deliberate and calm. The snow here is soft and deep, muffling every sound, creating a quiet world where nothing moves too quickly. The sky above is vast, clear, and sprinkled with countless stars, twinkling faintly like tiny lanterns in the night. As he climbs, he notices the gentle sweep of the wind across the mountainside. It brushes softly against his face, carrying the faint scent of pine, snow, and the distant warmth of a village far below. He breathes slowly, deeply, letting each inhalation fill him with calm, and each exhalation release any lingering tension. The cold is not harsh, it is steady, grounding, and soothing, wrapping him in a quiet rhythm. At the top of the pass, he stops to rest, sitting on a smooth rock dusted with snow. From here, the world stretches endlessly. Valleys, forests, and distant hills shimmer under the moon and stars. A gentle hush fills the air, broken only by the faint, soft whisper of wind through the peaks. The bard closes his eyes, letting the serene view, the crisp mountain air, and the soft sounds of night lull him deeper. He hums softly, a single, slow note, letting it resonate across the quiet mountains. The sound blends with the wind, the rustling snow, and the faint echo of distant streams. Each note feels like a soft wave of calm, moving through the valley, through the hills, and into the deepest parts of the mind. He imagines the note spreading through the landscape, touching every tree, every stone, every snowflake, carrying peace wherever it goes. Below, the villages rest quietly, lights glowing faintly in windows. Smoke rises in lazy curls, and the faint sounds of nighttime routines drift up to meet him. He smiles softly, imagining people tucked warmly in their homes, wrapped in blankets, listening to gentle stories, feeling safe and calm. The bard feels a connection to this quiet world, as if every flicker of light and every sound of life is a gentle heartbeat, steady and reassuring. The stars overhead shimmer faintly, and he watches as one streaks slowly across the sky, like a soft brushstroke of light. He whispers a quiet wish, not for anything specific, just for continued peace, gentle sleep, and calm. The mountains, the snow, the night sky, all of it seems to answer in the slow, steady rhythm of the world. He leans back against the rock, feeling the snow pressing softly beneath him, the cold brushing gently against his skin, and the vast, open sky above. His breath matches the slow rhythm of the wind, the quiet pulse of the mountains, and the soft murmur of distant villages. Every sensation blends into a single, harmonious wave of calm. The bard closes his eyes completely now, letting the world, the night, and the soft lullaby of snow, wind, and stars carry him into sleep. The cold becomes a gentle weight, the sky above a comforting blanket, and the distant village lights a soft hum of safety and warmth. As he drifts further, the snow continues to fall silently. The wind whispers ever so softly, and the mountains hold him in perfect stillness. The stars glow faintly, the villages rest below, and the entire world breathes in quiet harmony. And slowly, gently, completely. The bardand, anyone listening, sinks into peaceful, dream-filled sleep. The night embraces everything. The snow, the mountains, the wind, the soft flicker of village fires. All of it exists only to soothe, to calm, and to guide the mind into rest. And as the final note of his lute fades into the quiet night, every listener is gently carried, like snowflakes drifting in the soft moonlight, into the deepest, most serene sleep imaginable.